All right. Well, this evening's talk is on Visio Divina, which is praying with art. And so you may have heard of Lectio Divina, and that's a Catholic practice where you pray using the scriptures. And there's more than one way to pray. God is always happy to hear from us. And so I'm going to walk you through how you would go ahead and pray with art. And so the first is called an in-depth reading of the art piece. In the Latin is visio. And so the second is after you've looked at the art piece, you meditate on it. And so the Latin is meditato. And then after you've done the meditation piece, which we'll go over, you begin to pray. And the Latin for that is orito. And then the fourth step is enter into contemplation. So we've looked at the art, we've meditated on the art, we've entered into a dialogue with the Lord, and then the final piece is contemplation, and so that's contemplato in Latin. So as we'll be looking at a piece of art here, one of the first things that you do is slowly scan the piece of art. And so work from the top to the bottom and take your time, because a lot of these, the really great art pieces, there can be quite a bit going on. And then once you've made your way from top to bottom, work left to right. And as you're doing this, notice all the the people and things included in the scene. The artist has put things in there for you to notice, to pay attention, and a lot of times they're telling a story. And so, but there's also, in addition to just the basic makeup of the art piece, things can be put in there symbolically as well. And so there's a literal examples and symbolic examples in a lot of these art pieces. And so once you've taken a good look at the art piece, what's your first impression? Think about that. What's going on? And if we were to use an example, I think that one of the examples, that's a good one, is Albrecht Dührer's. It's The Night, Death, and the Devil. And this is a piece from the early 1500s. And we're looking at a knight who's on a horse. The horse is very proud. And then in the background, there is a person who represents death. And then behind him, there's this horned goat figure that represents the devil. And there's an awful lot of symbolism going on in this art piece. And so if we were looking at Albrecht Dührer's Night, Death, and the Devil, the first impression to me is it's a pretty dark image. And a little bit foreboding. But as you get deeper into the piece, you see that the knight, he's sitting there and he's really rather proud. And the image of death is kind of looking at him, but he's off to the side, and the devil is behind him. And the relations there, how they're placed, is that the knight, he's on his trusty steed and he's forging forward, he's moving forward. Death is off to the side, the devil is behind him, which is kind of how you want things to be. You don't want to be contemplating death in front of you all the time. That's not terribly productive. And you certainly don't want the devil in front of you blocking your path. And so it's showing this kind of Christian fortitude. And so things are placed in relation to each other. There's other, especially in the Middle Ages, there's a lot of depictions like this, and especially temptation and fear and the unknown that we as humans deal with. And people in modern society like to think about how complicated our lives are, and truly they are. But a lot of the same worries and apprehensions that we have today, people have had for all of history. So that's the reading of the painting. As you're going through and you're looking at all of the things in the painting. And so the next portion would be to meditate on the painting. And so St. Francis and St. Ignatius are big advocates of meditation. And so as we're looking at the scene, imagine that you're in the scene. Take yourself and place yourself into the scene. And how would you feel to be there? Like, what kind of feelings do you get? And of course, this one piece of art that I kind of went with is a little dark and foreboding, but life can be that way sometimes. It's not all sunshine and lollipops. And so take this as an opportunity to put yourself in a situation and just kind of think about how you would feel. And of course, in this painting, it's actually an engraving. So what do you see? What do you hear? What do you smell? And of course, it's an outdoor scene. It looks like it's kind of in the late fall. There's animals involved. So if you've ever been around horses or dogs, think about what they smell like. Think about how the weather would be treating you. And let it open doors to thinking, what's in that painting or in this piece of particular art that may not have come to you if you weren't looking at it presently. So take a moment to think about that. So the meditation process is to just kind of drink it all in, and how do you respond to it? So after the meditation process, that's when we begin to pray. So, orato. And so let your prayer be guided by your experience with the work. And in this particular instance, we're looking at a knight. He's on his horse. He has death off to the side and the devil behind him. And sometimes life can feel that way, that we're always faced with temptations in life. And temptations aren't necessarily a bad thing. It's giving in to temptations that's the bad thing. So think about how you're dealing with it. And you can look in this piece of particular art. How is the knight dealing with this temptation? And if you look at his eyes, he's got his eyes fixed at a point beyond death and the devil. So he's not paying attention to them. He's moving forward, and he's moving forward with purpose. He looks like a formidable person. And so that's one of the ways that you deal with temptation, is you kind of gird your loins and move forward with purpose. And they talk about this just in if you're in a sketchy neighborhood or something like that if you look like food, you're going to get eaten. And this knight does not look like food. He looks like somebody who's to be reckoned with. And so if you're thinking about that and you're thinking about your own personal life, maybe there's some spiritual instances that you think, well, maybe I need to be a little more purposeful. Maybe I need to set a better example. That there's a lot of people in our lives today who could use a good example. And sometimes maybe that's what you're being called to through this piece of art. So use your impression to address situations that you've been dealing with, sometimes for many, many years. And so it might be something as simple as you're with the family, or you're with a group of friends, and somebody starts talking about maybe skipping Mass, for example. Say, nope, we're going to church. It's not an option. So if you were to ask this knight, is he going to Mass? Probably. Maybe that's where he's going. And maybe he's being tempted by things on the way. So we'll pray about that. Pray for God's grace. Pray for God to give you strength. Pray for God maybe to help you to set a good example. And again, this is what we're drawing out of this one piece of art. There's all kinds of different art. So, and the art may speak to you differently. So after we've done our prayer, then we enter into contemplation, okay? And so now, either close your eyes or look at the piece of work and kind of clear your mind, okay? So what does this work present to you? Is there joy? Is there suffering? Is there clarity? And just kind of make space for the Holy Spirit to have some conversation with you. Because we like to talk. I like to talk. And if you don't take that time just to sit there and to let things pop in, it's always, the human brain is amazing for the things it's able to pick up. And the Holy Spirit comes in the most unusual times and in unusual ways. And so it's in that piece of the contemplation of the piece of art that maybe something wonderful will be revealed, maybe nothing particular at all. It might not be your day, okay? But that's the thing, is to make that opportunity during this piece of contemplation. So let the work speak to you. And that's essentially how you pray with art. So we have follow-up suggestions. There's 4 different areas for you to look at. There's a good resource called pathwaystogod.org, and there's resources of praying with art. There's a pretty good YouTube channel, and it's called Jesuit Prayer, Praying with Art, where they take you through a number of these experiences, people who are maybe a little bit better than myself. There's also a Pinterest page that has a lot of really great instances of art that you can use for this exercise. And then there's also formed.org that has a bunch of really wonderful resources. So if you're interested in learning more about how to pray with art, I'm giving 2 one-hour talks. One is on November 5th and the other is on November 19th. They're Tuesday nights from 6:45 to 7:45. So come on, it'll be fun. We'll look at a couple of really great examples of art and get to know your fellow parishioners as well. Thanks.